interesting chat today with my friend Andrew.
Good morning, Patrick.
Good morning, Andrew. Nice of you to come.
Pleasure.
And tell us all about how you ended up here in Thailand and what you did before, maybe. And I mean, we're all interested in your experiences here and whether you have any regrets, whether you would recommend living here and the pros and cons. Maybe those are the sort of things we can talk about today.
Absolutely. As far as Thailand goes, I've been coming to and in and around Thailand for the best part of the last 20 years.
Wow.
Originally on holiday, as you would expect. And I then met my then wife, who originated from Khon Kaen.
Okay.
And I came out to Thailand on a regular basis, once, twice, 3 times a year for several weeks, a month, 2 months at a time, over 15 to 20 years.
So, sorry, when did you meet her originally?
Originally would have been in 2005,
okay,
something like that, I would imagine. And we married in 2007 at that time. And so I spent a lot of time in the early years around southern Thailand, around the islands, beaches, as you would expect, as tourists do at that time. But once I met my then wife, we moved up to her home area of Khon Kaen. And
where is Khon Kaen exactly, for people who don't know Thailand?
Khon Kaen is Isan, which is northeastern Thailand, and Khon Kaen is the capital province, if you like, the major provincial capital of Isan province. And it's that part of Thailand that is that semicircle that bellies out towards Laos, and Khon Kaen is virtually in the centre of that of that semicircle, if you like.
So if you went from Bangkok, you'd go northeast from Bangkok.
Correct. Yeah. You would indeed, through Korat and up then to Khon Kaen. And Khon Kaen is it's a major commercial and university city, so it's not a tourist destination. There are a lot of expats that live in and around Khon Kaen who are married to ladies from that area, but it's not a destination that ordinarily tourists would find themselves going to. Very, very good university, one of the top 10 in Thailand, I would suggest. But the majority of Isan province and around Khon Kaen is rice and sugarcane farming. Yeah. That is their major industry.
I think that whole region is called Isan, isn't it?
It is.
And that's a big agricultural part of Thailand.
Absolutely. It's not a wealthy part of Thailand. That's not to say there aren't wealthy people in Khon Kaen, business people there are, but generally speaking, the populace of Isan is not a wealthy community. They're farmers, they work hard, they work long hours. Very nice people, very happy people. But certainly it's a hard life, I think, for those that live and work there. And it's a hot part of Thailand.
Yes.
It's quite hot and dry, and especially in the hot season, March, April, May, it's very, very hot. You're talking temperatures over 40 degrees.
Wow.
And so, I spent the majority of my time in Thailand, in and around that area, and I have many friends who I still contact with in and around Khon Kaen. About 2 years ago, I separated from my wife and moved up to Chiang Rai.
Okay, up where we are now in Chiang Rai, in the far, far north.
Absolutely right.
Thailand. Yeah.
And I came up to Chiang Rai for a month, and then 6 months later for another month, and about 12 months after that for another month or 6 weeks. It's an area that I wasn't familiar with originally, but I knew Chiang Mai. I liked the north. The climate is wonderful in the north of Thailand, and especially here in Chiang Rai. And of course the mountains and the motorcycling is amazing. Yeah. And so I moved up here 18 months or so ago. And absolutely loved it.
You've only been here for 18 months.
Yeah, in Chiang Rai for
you haven't been here a lot
18
longer
months
than me, because I've only been
permanently.
here 14 months or so.
Yeah, permanently for only 18 months.
I didn't realise. Okay.
But absolutely love it.
What were you doing originally 20 odd years ago when you met your ex-wife? You were still in the UK at the time.
Correct.
You were working,
Correct.
living in the UK.
Yeah, absolutely. Main home in the UK, and I was working and have worked in corporate finance all of my life. I worked for a major bank in the UK.
Okay.
And I worked in corporate finance, working in receivables finance for major corporates.
So were you working in London? Or?
No, I wasn't working in London. I worked in the north of England, so Leeds, Manchester, Newcastle. That parameter. I went down to London on occasions, but not for any permanency down there. So the bulk of my work was always in the major financial centres in the north of England. Yeah. But tied into a global company that I worked for. I got lucky in that I happened upon an early retirement package at 54-year-old, which was a deal really that I couldn't miss out on, and took that opportunity, which gave me more time to spend out here and to enjoy a little bit of retirement on an earlier basis.
And also lucky because 50 is the minimum age here to get the retirement visa.
Correct, absolutely.
So you could move physically as well, you could relocate. You had your early retirement, so you got some sort of a payoff or pension, I expect.
Indeed. I didn't relocate initially. I spent some years still in the UK, but obviously more time in Thailand during those periods. And then relocated some years into my retirement at that point. I made a decision probably many years ago, Patrick, that this is the destination I wanted to live in eventually. And it was a case of working towards what I thought would have been a 60-year retirement age initially, and the plans were there to move out here when I was 60. I didn't move much before I was 60 in the end in any event because of other circumstances in the UK, but it did mean that it made my my move out here a lot easier.
So how long ago was it then when you moved originally? You moved originally to Khon Kaen, that's right?
Moved originally to Khon Kaen, but that was only 3 years ago in total. So I haven't been out here permanently on a very extended basis as yet.
So you've been, I forget exactly how long, 18 months here, 3 years, so it's almost half the time altogether up here and the other half down in Khon Kaen.
Correct.
So there's obviously a couple of big questions that I'm wondering about is the big difference obviously between living in Thailand and living in, and retired, obviously different life because you're no longer working in the bank or in finance, but living in Thailand as opposed to living back in the UK, that's a big question, that one, the differences and advantages, disadvantages, whatever.
Huge advantage for me, climate. Is the major one. Luckily, I don't have any significant health issues, but climate is great. The year-round climate is wonderful in Thailand, so that's a big must. The cost of living is significantly less.
Yes.
The people are really good. The culture and the food are amazing. And it's just a culture that I adhered to very early on in my Thai trips. And it took it to my heart, and I knew many years ago that this was where I wanted to be. The pace of life out here is amazing. It's easygoing. It's steady. I don't miss the rat race in the work environment where I used to be in the major cities in the UK. I don't miss the cold winters in the UK. I don't miss the UK culture, which probably sounds a little bit strange, being an Englishman born and bred and having lived there for the majority of my life. But there's a completely different mindset in Thailand. You've got to be careful not to go into holiday mode every day of the week because we're not on holiday out here. We live out here, so it's you don't visit the bars every day and have a good time and spend lots of money. It's not like that. You've got to manage your own week by week, month by month propositions out here. But it is for me, it's far more enjoyable, less stressful, if you want of any better word.
Yes.
It's a lovely place to be. Disadvantages in living in Thailand, you do have to adapt to understanding how Thais operate in many respects.
What does that mean for you, though? What do you think that... I understand what you mean. I mean, I've got a feeling for that, but what... Well, people who've never lived here or even been to Thailand, maybe, what sort of things
there are... I mean, it's no secret that there is open corruption in Thailand at the highest levels through many of the major government factions. So that makes it very difficult for, particularly for expats living in Thailand. It's very difficult. Road traffic accidents, just to pick an example, are an obvious cause of concern and difficulties for expats because inevitably there is an initial wish for Thais to blame the foreigner, the expat, whatever the circumstances, and that's the initial assumption. So cars, we all have cameras front and back facing, so we can prove what's happened in the event of any accidents or nudges. It's a difficult, sometimes a difficult process to understand that bribery and corruption can get you out of most situations here in Thailand. Rightly or wrongly, and whether you think that's good or whether you think that's bad, it's a challenge at times. I think expats are treated as second-class citizens in Thailand, to many respects. There's often a double-tier pricing system, particularly in the tourist areas and the islands in the south. You've got a Thai price, you've got a foreigner, a Farang price, if you like. We understand that. We've been here long enough to understand that, and you have to accept that sometimes. But it is, you need to understand the tugs and pulls before moving to live in Thailand. It's not all land of milk and honey. There are difficulties and challenges as well. We have to ensure that we meet visa requirements, which are strict and imposed very heavily. So even though we technically reside and live out here, we're granted a 1-year residency visa only, and it has to be renewed every year. And the conditions for that are prescribed and non-negotiable. And any slippage in those conditions means you have to leave the country and come back and start again with a new process. And these are the things that we need to understand before we make a decision to move out here, because you can't argue with the authority. It is what it is. But we smile, we get on with it, we play by the rules, we do what we need to do, and hopefully they allow us the courtesy of living. You know, I never forget for 1 minute that I'm a visitor in Thailand. Even though I live here, I like to think I'm part of the community here now, and part of the culture. We are visitors in Thailand, so we've got to respect their culture. We've got to respect the people over here, and I think that's how we integrate best by doing that. For sure.
One thing that I would add that I think is a very positive aspect, and I think it's probably true for most, if not all, Asian cultures, is the fact that people like us, and we're both getting on a bit, put it like that. Okay, I'm an ancient biker, and you're not quite ancient. As ancient as me, maybe,
slightly less ancient.
But okay, slightly less ancient than me. But what I was going to say is that there is this sort of cultural respect for old people. Which is, I think it's true to say, pretty well missing certainly in Western Europe. I'm guessing much the same in the States and North America. But it's one of the nice things is you get the sort of. On the one hand, you say, and I think there's truth in that. You as a sort of second class citizens as being foreigners, which is compensated, I would say, at least superficially, by the fact that we're both, obviously you have to be over 50 as minimum to qualify as for a retirement pension. So I think that's by way of a sort of compensation, is that older people like us, and we're at least 50, as I say, to get that visa we have to be 50, is that we get a superficial acknowledgement of our age in a positive way that I think is missing, generally speaking, in most, if not all, of the West.
I agree with that.
I think that's a good thing here.
Indeed.
Nice for us. Yeah.
Family's big in Asian cultures, and particularly Thailand. Family is the most important thing.
Yeah.
And you're quite right. The respect for the hierarchy of age, and particularly more senior generations, is noticeable.
Yeah.
And it is very nice.
Yes.
It does mean that whilst some of the Thai kids will have fun with us as foreigners out here, the respect is always there, and it's only that the fun is likable fun. It's not a taunt. But the respect is always there. And the children will always be respectable. Why with you? And it's a nice way to be.
And you just mentioned fun, because I think that's another thing which is specific to Thailand more than, say, other typically, for example, ethnic Chinese cultures, which is like countries like Singapore or maybe Hong Kong or mainland China, is this Thai tradition of fun. I think it's called sanuk.
Sanuk, yes.
Which means having a good time. I think that's the way I understand it, which is a sort of attitude to life.
Yeah.
And where a lot of the day-to-day way of doing things and thinking and behaving is about enjoying life.
Happiness.
Happiness, being happy.
Absolutely.
And I think, as I say, the big contrast to me would probably be the sort of more typically Chinese attitude, which is much more, I think, probably about achievement, getting great scores, which is good, getting great scores at school and university, getting good job, getting a good income.
Yeah.
There's more emphasis on the material side of things, I would say, as a generalization, a big generalization, than Chinese culture, than in the Thai culture, which is more about enjoying life.
Totally agree.
That's a big difference.
And I would apply that to Western cultures as well.
Yeah.
A little bit about what I alluded to before in terms of cultural differences, in that there is a materialistic culture in the UK and the West generally. There is a culture of trying to be the biggest and the best in the West generally, a fight to the top, a dog eat dog, if you like.
Yeah.
And what that does is it doesn't drive happiness. It creates resentment. It creates ill will at times, and you don't see that in Thailand. Thailand is driven by happiness, and they're not so interested in fighting their way up the ladder to be the top dog, to be the boss, to be whatever. They're happy with their lot, whatever that lot might be. And it's evident when you talk to people throughout this country, be that in the major cities or in the rural communities, that happiness is part of their soul and part of their endemic culture.
Maybe it's, I don't know, because I'm not a theologian and I'm not that interested in organized religions, but maybe it's related to Buddhism in some way at least.
I'm sure it is.
But as I say, that again, Thai Buddhism is not the same as you find in other Buddhist countries.
Indeed.
There's a difference, or differences between them, but maybe that's a connection. And I think perhaps it also goes back to the cultural traditions of a village society, which Thailand no longer is. Even you mentioned Khon Kaen at the beginning. Yeah. That's quite a big place, isn't it?
It's a very big city.
Big city, yes. So it's a very rural region, part of Thailand, but the city itself, a town itself, a city, is quite sizable.
It's significant.
It's not a village by any means in any sense.
It's a major city,
But I think those village traditions which is also about, I suppose in a certain sense about conformity, which is typical for Asian societies as a whole, I would think. The value placed on conforming in some ways and getting on with your neighbors. And that's the sort of village, also a village thing. And Yeah, making do, I suppose, making do with your lot, I suppose you could say as well. Yeah,
I see that.
Yeah.
I see that every day. I mean, I walk just from my home around the areas, and you can see poverty.
Yes.
But the people are happy. There's no resentment in that.
Yeah.
And it's a happiness that derives from within.
Yeah.
You know, they're content.
Yeah.
They're content people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that rubs off on me, on others, and you feel happy in their presence and in the community.
I think that's true. I think it's something, I think you're right. I think it's one of the things that we appreciate, even if we don't understand the language. Most of us don't, not very well anyway. And so we can't communicate on a one-to-one basis and a normal Thai-to-Thai basis with local people. But you're right, I think that rubs off. When you have a feeling that the people around you obviously there are problems here as there are everywhere, and I'm not saying that they don't exist and they don't need to be fixed, but when you have the feeling that people around you generally are happy or contented, you're right, I think it rubs off. And when you go, and we notice it, I think probably most of us anyway, when we go back maybe to visit, we go back, who knows, maybe for Christmas or other reasons, back to Europe or back to wherever you come from in the West, and you're confronted with unsmiling people who are don't appear to be very happy, or maybe very unhappy, very bitter or whatever, and that rubs off as well. So you notice that, you notice the differences, of course. That's what I'm trying to say. You notice the differences when you get out of this bubble we live in and back into the bubble we came from.
Indeed. I haven't been back to the UK for almost 3 years now, and I have no immediate plans to do so.
No.
And I think you're right. I think you know it's. I have to find a reason to go back to the UK now, rather than a desire, if you like.
And it's become much more. I mean, one of the differences. Even I've only been here 2 years. You've been here slightly longer than me, but both of us who came here a little bit, you know, not just 6 months ago, will maybe still remember how much cheaper it was. I mean, one of the maybe side effects of COVID is that flight prices went up, not just doubled, but they basically, I think, still about 3 times the level that they were at 2 or 3 years ago.
I believe
so. When I came 2 years ago, it was about a third of the cost that it is now to fly from Europe there and back. So that is a big factor, actually.
It is. It's you've got to take things like that into consideration, and you know, I mean, I don't have parents living anymore now, so in that sense, I don't have a commitment that I need to go back in that sense. But it's a great lifestyle out here.
Yeah.
You know, talking about happiness, I turn the ignition on my motorbike, and the smile on my face broadens instantly. And you know, we have a great motorcycling community in Thailand amongst the expats.
Yeah,
and amongst the Thais who ride as well, and that's tremendous.
That's a big subject I was going to come on to, and every time I look and see your Triumph T-shirt you've got there, I'm thinking about it. I was out yesterday, in fact, with the 4 other people, 5 of us. We just went up around the hills, along the Myanmar border, and ended up in Mae Sai, on the border with Myanmar. We're literally 150 meters from the border post. And that was a lovely day out, because the weather right now, of course, in winter especially, is really nice here.
Perfect.
And it was a nice, I guess we probably went no more than 150 kilometers there and back, maybe a bit more, not much. But it was a very nice day trip, easy day trip, very little traffic, and very enjoyable. And there's something that you do too. And one difference, of course, you're on your Triumph and I'm on my Royal Enfield. But and it's probably true to say, I don't know if I want to say fanboy, but you're a big fan anyway of Triumph.
I am. I've always had Triumphs for whatever reason. For quite a number of years now. In the UK, I had Triumphs. Started with the Bonneville. A number of years ago, and I've had a big cruiser in my time as well in the UK. And my first Triumph out here, which I bought 6 years ago, was a classic. It was a Thruxton 1200 classic. And when I moved up to Chiang Rai, as much as I love that bike and my heart is still with it, I think it's fair to say, I did change for a more of an adventure bike up here. So I've gone for a Tiger now up here, which I think is better for the terrain that we have in Chiang Rai, the mountains, some of the off-road that you meet if that's a challenge that you wish to take on. But you know, northern Thailand has some of the best motorcycling, probably in the whole of Southeast Asia.
Probably, possibly in the whole world, I would say, because people come from all over the world to go motorcycling.
I wouldn't disagree. And generally speaking, the roads in northern Thailand are pretty good for motorcycling. Compared to Laos, for instance, where you've got 100 meters of tarmac and 22 kilometers of dirt, potholes and mud. You know, we're lucky. We're lucky in northern Thailand that we have the most amazing scenery. We have some incredible mountain roads to ride. We have some amazing, between 3 or 4 provinces, from Nan, Phayao, part of Chiang Rai, across to Chiang Mai province, even down to Lampang. We've got some beautiful riding around here. And as you mentioned before, you can plot a day ride for a couple of 100 kilometers, or a week, or whatever takes your fancy. And you know, we've got a lot of friends between us who are bikers. And I've met a lot of people in northern Thailand through motorcycling. And you mentioned Triumph. Triumph is an established brand in Thailand now, not least because they moved the manufacturing plant to Chonburi quite a number of years ago. But we have a Triumph Chiang Rai group, which is mainly Thai boys, men who ride, and they've got their classics, which are all customized and what have you. But we organise monthly ride out with the Triumph group, and there's maybe myself or myself plus 1 or 2 other expats who ride, but mainly the group is consistent of the Triumph Thai riders. And they welcome us, they take us out with them, we go around, we have lunch, we have coffees, and we have wonderful days out. Sometimes it's a 2-day trip. And whilst my Thai is relatively limited, their English is okay. They're professional guys in the main, or at least guys in business who are sufficiently wealthy to afford motorbikes of that caliber, might I say. So they're good people. And it's great to ride with them. You know, they know the area around here way better than I ever will. And they know the roads to go. They know the challenging routes to take. So riding with them is an absolute pleasure. That's maybe once a month, maybe once every 2 months in the not so pleasant season that we have now. But riding in Thailand, motorcycling is, you can ride all year round. In the north you can. Even in the hot season we can ride here. When I was down in Khon Kaen, 43, 44 degrees, you stop at traffic lights even for 30 seconds, you melt. And it's very unpleasant. And motorcycling in that heat, and it's dusty and it's dry, is very unpleasant. We don't get the intensity of heat in the north. You know, we might get a 38 or a 39. It tends to be about maximum here, but we also get, it doesn't feel like that always. And of course, yes, we have the rainy season. But generally it doesn't rain every day. Or every part of every day at least.
As you say, when it does rain, and it can rain very hard, it tends to be, in terms of the time, you know, the length of time it's raining, it's probably in the whole day, maximum 2 hours, closer to an hour normally.
And generally in the early evening.
It tends to be at the same time. It's funny that one of the funniest, one of the most interesting things I noticed when I first came out to Chiang Mai at the time was that you could almost tell the time of day by when it starts to rain.
Absolutely.
6 or whatever it was in the evening. Like clockwork.
And you sometimes do get wet when you're out on a ride. You get caught in a heavy shower. But you dry off again pretty quickly. You dry off very quickly in a very warm breeze that you've got on the bike. It's not a problem, and it's wonderful. It's I just wish that some of the Thai motorcyclists or those that ride scooters would be a little better protected when they ride. You know, it's not so bad, no helmet, shorts and flip-flops if you're just riding to the local store 200 meters away. But You see these guys on the mountain roads on very small bikes with no protection.
No.
And it's a tragedy that there are so many road traffic deaths in Thailand.
Yes.
Still.
Yeah.
Mainly on smaller scooters and small motorbikes with people who perhaps aren't averse or aren't well versed in the highway code and road conditions, but equally don't wear anything like the protection that's required. Yeah. And it's a bit of a stain on Thailand's character, the fact that there are still so many deaths in road traffic.
And as a single factor, is probably a large proportion of those deaths and injuries are related directly to the lack of helmets.
I would say so. I mean, I don't know the statistics, but
probably, I'm guessing.
They do say that the majority of those deaths are small motorbike related.
Yeah.
And from what I see, I'm guessing that lack of helmets plays a major part of that. Yeah. And even though helmets are technically mandatory in Thailand.
And they will get fined a couple of $100 baht, which is what, about $5 if the police have a check on that, as they do sometimes. But still,
they get their ticket and they're allowed to drive away from that scene without their helmet again.
Yes,
so
What can you say? It's the culture. It's the Sanuk thing, cutting it again. I think it's the relax and enjoy things, the culture. You know?
But the sad part is it tends to give all motorcyclists a bit of a bad name in terms of the overall level of deaths that are recorded in Thailand. Yeah. All the guys that I ride with. Everybody wears proper motorcycle gear, helmets,
boots.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you know, from my point of view, it's a must, Patrick. I think.
I agree. I'm not arguing about that. It's nice, the idea of even just the local, you know, going through the rice fields on the bike very, very slowly and so on. I guess it would. You know, it would be a different sensation if you've not got the helmet all around your head. But it's not something I've really been tempted to do, honestly.
No, indeed, and you know, there's one reason that in the UK and Europe that the only piece of motorcycle equipment that's mandatory is a helmet. Yeah.
Except I think in France wear goggles, or is it in it's the States? I think in the States. In a lot of states, I think 30 out of 50 don't have any requirement for adults to wear helmets, but I think that practically all of them do have a requirement to wear some sort of eye protection. Which is interesting, isn't it? Yes, okay, so I was thinking, it'd be interesting just to have a quick word about the Triumph, your Triumph, because you've been riding Triumphs for quite a few years now.
A little while, a number of years.
And you rode them in the UK, and in those days when you started... riding motorbikes, it was also in Triumphs. They were all probably in those days all made in the UK.
Absolutely, all made in the UK originally, and carburetted originally as well. Yeah, nice motorbikes, lovely sound, lovely rich British twin sounding engines, and they were beautiful, no doubt about that. And of course. Originally, Triumph I rode was the original Triumphs, and then Triumph went into administration for quite a number of years until John Bloor bought the brand and re-established the new range of bikes, or a newer range of bikes, which has then been extended and of course updated since. Yes. But they're all. Or they all have been lovely bikes to ride, even though I've ridden different bikes. I started off with Bonneville 650 originally, and I moved through various bikes, and I had a Thunderbird Commander, which was a 1700 cc cruiser.
That's a big bike.
Very heavy bike and a big bike, but beautiful to ride in the UK, where you've got highways, major A roads, motorways and routes, so lovely for fast cruising in that sense, but totally unfit for some of the roads that we ride daily up here in Chiang Rai. Yeah. And originally Triumph, I believe, wanted to compete with Harleys, which is why they went into the cruiser market to try to compete with Harley. And they did that for a number of years, probably, maybe 15 years, something around that sort of time span. And they had a change then in direction, and they then wanted to pull out of the cruiser market. They wanted to update and upgrade their production of classic models, which they expanded the range of their classics. But they also moved into the adventure market with the Tiger range and such like, and they now see their main competitor in that marketplace is BMW.
Oh yeah, okay.
So they target, or they have targeted their adventure range to match the BMW GSs and the adventure range there.
That's right. The big, which even have draft. What they call shaft drive now, don't they? The biggest.
The Explorer
Tigers.
Yeah, the Tiger Explorer 1200.
Yeah.
Lovely bikes for long distance touring.
Yes.
Lovely bike for long distance touring. But at our age, Patrick, they're heavy bikes now.
If they fall over, you've got to.
You need an army to pick
pull
them
that
up again.
That's true.
I can't lift one of those up these days on my own. Whereas my 660 Tiger I have now, I think I could if I don't plan to drop it and hope I don't, but I could manage, I believe.
I remember you told me when you decided to move from the Thruxton, which is very much a classic sort of, what would you describe that as, a classic?
Yeah, it's a classic, absolute classic cafe racer.
Cafe racer, that's right. So
traditional cafe racer.
And so on it. And when you moved from that to like I did, I downsized from a 700cc Honda to a 350cc Royal Enfield, and you've gone much the same way from a 1200 or so.
1200
Thruxton to a 660
Tiger Sport.
Tiger Sport. And I remember you told me one of the reasons you didn't go for the middle-sized 900 or so was because although they're all made now in Thailand, you had to pay for heated grips and a heated seat as well, I think, isn't that right?
Interestingly, I don't know what the plan for Triumph in Thailand is now, but certainly 12 months ago when I was looking to exchange my Thruxton for an adventure model, the mid-adventure bike was what I really wanted, the 900.
Yes.
Either the GT Road version or the Rally, which is slightly more off-road orientated, but I don't do a lot of off-road riding, to be honest. But the only 900s in both models that they were selling in Thailand were the Pro models, which is the top of the range, all singing, all fully dancing, fully loaded models. Even though Triumph in Thailand were building the basic 900s without all the bells and whistles, all of those were being sold in the European market, or America or wherever, but certainly not in Thailand. So the bike I actually wanted, I was having to pay 200,000 baht for all these extra bells and whistles that I didn't want, wasn't going to use, and felt, that I don't want to spend that sort of money on gizmos that in reality are not something I want. Heated seats, heated grips, 3 off-road riding pro modes. All extra stuff that to me was superfluous to my ability and my desires to ride. It's sometimes basic is better. I like a bike which is just a bike to be able to ride it, and I don't need too much.
No, the high technology and so on.
Exactly, that goes with it. So whilst I would love to have bought what I call the basic version of the 900. It wasn't available in Thailand at that time, so I went for the 660, which is a beautiful bike to ride. Very well balanced, it corners beautifully. I'd say it's probably perfect for the roads and the terrain we have out here. Yes, it'll take off-road trails a little bit, not serious off-road riding, of course, but it's well balanced. It comes with the option of luggage with box and panniers, which I have, so I can go touring for a week, 10 days, a fortnight at a time, whatever I want. And that's one of my other great aims now is to tour around Thailand and see the provinces and some of the areas that I've never been to.
And maybe, I don't know what your plans are, because I would say one of the possible downsides, especially to the north of Thailand, even against other regions, is what we've come to call the smoky season.
Yes.
which generally, and of course that changes a bit from year to year, generally starts around about February, end of February, and can last at least 2 months.
It can, yes.
And that's when we get a lot of very small particulate pollution.
Correct.
caused by farmers, most of it caused by farmers deliberately burning the crops or the land preparing for crops.
Yeah.
And it's not only here in Thailand, but we're right in the triangle here, the Golden Triangle.
Myanmar, Laos as well.
We've got
exactly.
Myanmar and Laos, 2 other countries on each side of the triangle we're living in. And so the smoke comes across from those 2 countries as well. But that's one of the few, I would say, very few downsides to living up here in the far north of Thailand, is that we get about 2 months of smoky climate, smoky season.
Yep.
And those of us that can afford it, at least, unlike a lot of the local Thais who can't really afford it to move, and they have to work and they can't move away, that we have that sort of luxury, perhaps privilege of being able to move somewhere else, like the south of Thailand,
Absolutely.
where I'm planning to go down myself near the beach, down in the south, for 2 months to get away from the smoke, which is expected to come in the next 6 or 8 weeks.
It's our holiday season, Patrick, isn't it?
Yes, I suppose, yeah, because people say, you live up there, you're a long way from the sea, but partly because of the smoke, we're probably going to get 2 months somewhere near the sea every year, if only because we want to get away from the smoke. So, and of course, even if it isn't the smoky season, it's easy enough to go to the local airport in Chiang Rai, fly south to the beach. So that's never a big problem anyway. Or, of course, in our cases, maybe, in my case at least, take the motorbike.
Correct.
If we're going for a long time, 2 months or so, to ride down.
Me too.
A 3-day trip.
And that would be my plan as well. If we get a bad year of smoky season up here, then I'll load the bike up and I'll take the bike off and I'll go and visit areas that I haven't yet seen that I want to visit.
Yes.
And make a trip of it. 2 weeks, a month, whatever it might be.
Yeah, you've got a pickup, and does your bike fit in the back of that pickup?
Not easily on the back, because my pickup has a roller cover which has an engine compartment at the front. So
I see. You'd have to take that off, but anyway, I suppose.
Or it would fit on with the tailgate down, but...
Okay, but it's an option perhaps. Yeah. If you're going away for 2 months, you might want to take the bike on the back of the pickup, and then you've got 2 modes of transport when you get there.
I mean, one of the things, or one of the beauties of Thailand is you can send the bike on the train, or
even with the post office.
Even with the post office,
you can send the bike
relatively
by
cheaply.
post.
You can send it 1,000 kilometers or whatever you want to do, and pick it up at the other end.
Yeah.
But one of the beauties is riding down.
Yes, absolutely.
And time is not something that I'm governed by these days, as the same for you.
Same for me.
If I go to the south of Thailand, it takes me 3 days to get there.
And we don't have to use there are highways here, and most bikers would probably agree that highways are not the nicest roads to ride on. They may be faster, of course, than the country roads, but they're not much
the nicest.
fun. Not much fun.
No.
And it's the same here in Thailand. So even if we have that option to save time and use the highways, if we're not in a hurry, we can use wonderful country roads through beautiful countryside where we're not riding as fast, but much more enjoyable riding. We can still do 200 or 300 kilometers a day, which is what I would do, and go south and spend 3 or even 4 days to go south, depending on where we're going. And that's my plan, actually, in the next 6 weeks or so, to ride down.
Well, I don't blame you.
I've already booked a place to stay for 2 months. I know where I'm going, and I know how nice it is when I get there. So, and it's literally right on the beach down south. So
beautiful.
That's my plan, is to load up the bike and ride down there 3 or 4 days, ride down to the beach.
Well,
spend 2 months, and up here is still probably be smoky up here. Where.
It's my plan as well, and I'll load the bike up, and I don't mind doing up to 500 kilometers a day on the adventure bike, because it's
your
more
bike's
comfortable.
Your bike's also a bit...
I wouldn't consider that on the Thruxton that I had before, which would have left you a little bit uncomfortable at the end of the day. But on the Tiger, 500 kilometers a day is easily manageable.
Yes.
If I want to do that much.
Yes.
But I would frankly do very similar to what your plan is, Patrick, and that'll be my plan, which is to go around, maybe stop off at various places, maybe go down to the beach as well for a little while.
Yes.
I've got friends down there. It'd be great to visit and to see. And all the while, you're riding, and if I'm riding like you, I'm happy.
Yes, absolutely. And it's still probably still dry that time of year. The rain doesn't start cutting in until a bit later.
No,
on.
May time, late
And that's
May.
the reason it's smoky, because the farmers are taking advantage of the fact that it isn't raining much.
Yeah.
And they can burn without worrying about the fires being put out by the rain.
Yeah.
So when we're on the bikes, we don't have to contend with rain much at that time of year, because it is still the dry part of the year.
That's right.
But up here, as I say, it can be. It's, you know, it smells a bit smoky, and they say it's not too good for you, even if you can't, you know, even if you don't notice it. The lungs don't appreciate being filled with this material which you're breathing in.
You know, it's dangerous stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, ultimately, yeah.
It's dangerous
and
stuff.
we wouldn't want to be laid up in 10 years or so with some sort of lung problems because of the smoke up here.
And I know that they say Chiang Mai is worse than Chiang Rai, but we had it pretty bad last year.
I think there's
It was the worst for 20-something years, they tell me, last year.
And Chiang Mai, Chiang Rai are about 180 kilometers apart. They're not that far apart,
couple hundred
really.
kilometers, exactly.
But yeah, that is, I would say, one of the very, very few downsides of being up here is the fact that we get a lot more smoke than most other parts of Thailand.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, Bangkok suffers from smoke from
pollution,
engine fumes, which is a different type of pollution.
It's a particular that's
equally
more
unpleasant.
exhausting. Yeah. Which is why a lot of Bangkok people, those who can afford it, also get away down south into the beaches.
And Chiang Mai, of course, suffers from congestion pollution, which is a huge problem now. It's such a large city.
Yes, you're right. I was there last weekend, and that's the first thing you notice when you ride on the bike from here down to Chiang Mai, is the heavy traffic compared with Chiang Rai.
I love to go. I don't want to live there now, but I love to go. I love to visit for a weekend.
Yeah, it's a nice city. It's very nice. It's got a lot of. There are obviously more things to do, and shops to shop in, and bars to drink whatever you want in. But
if you want something specific, that's where you've got to go.
Yeah,
new helmet or whatever it might be.
Yeah, but the downside is it is a much bigger city, and it's a lot busier than here, and the traffic. You notice these 4 or 5 lane highways that you don't have up here.
You notice it very quickly, don't you?
Yeah. I agree with you. So great, Andrew. Thanks so much for coming in.
Absolute pleasure.
Great conversation. Very interesting. Thanks very much.
Always good to see you. And thank you.
We'll be rubbing shoulders probably in the Irish.
In the local bar
very shortly, again, as often the case. Today's Friday, so we might be in there this evening or at the weekend.
Sounds good to me.
And thank you again.
Pleasure.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.